Career stagnated, love became dull, and He Xiaoman returned to his hometown to inherit a strange old house. The old house not only comes with an elderly grandmother, but also comes with a precious family heirloom, a mysterious invisible man who cannot distinguish between male and female, and a token-like property deed with a shocking sound. A cheat appeared. Asterisk no CP, the kitchen knife is reckless. Thank you for your attention. Please bookmark it. Keywords of the novel. Quickly wearing. Wanjia bao 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 pa no pop-ups, quickly wearing. Wanjia bao bao pa txt complete collection download, quickly wearing. Wanjia bao bao pa latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. The Legacy of the Zhang Family. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. The Legacy of the Zhang Family. He Xiaoman looked at the protruding stone on the ground and the neatly arranged 3 branches next to it. The 6th time. Not all 6 represent success. He Xiaoman seemed to be instantly drained of his spine and energy, slumped on the ground, completely disregarding the brand new 2-piece set of luxury hoodies and pants he was wearing to show off. Although it was just an A-grade product, it cost her over 3,000 yuan. With the light of her phone, she could see her own messy footprints on the ground. She has been back and forth in this haunted place 6 times already. The town hospital is located in the central area of Weio town. Follow the asphalt road in the town until you reach Manchue Bridge, then turn north and walk about a mile to reach it. But as He Xiaoman walked from dawn to darkness, the surrounding scenery became increasingly unfamiliar and desolate. After passing the Manchue Bridge, there is a middle and second high school in the town, followed by a large area of old residential buildings and mixed bungalows. However, in front of He Xiaoman's eyes, there is not a single building in this area, all of which are half a person tall weeds and shrubs. It doesn't seem like what a small town should have. Her eyes were filled with smoke and weeds, without any iconic buildings. The worst part was that she lost her sense of direction along with her phone signal, so it became a luxury to seek help from the outside world and locate herself. Now He Xiaoman's phone has successfully degenerated into a watch with a flashlight. This is the beginning of a typical thriller film. Taking a long breath and dragging her tired legs, He Xiaoman, who was very conscious of the protagonist, decided to struggle to the death again. After all, she couldn't fall on such a smooth number, it was 6. When I saw these 3 branches and a shiny stone again, they looked like a shiny head and wrinkled forehead when combined under the light of my phone. He Xiaoman suddenly realized that this pattern was quite similar to the monotonous and slightly strange old ding head that she and her neighbor Erping had drawn countless times when she was a child. An old ding head, lend us a ball, he said. He hasn't returned it in 3 or 4 days. With 3 branches and the bare stone, it looked like an old man buried here with grass. Because the burial was not very thorough, the bald head and forehead were exposed. This scene He Xiaoman felt a chill in his spine, and suddenly ran out of the distance like stepping on a nail under his feet, afraid to look at the branches and stones he had personally placed. When she noticed that she had been circling within a certain range, she found a more prominent stone as a reference. In order to prevent the occurrence of similar stones, she also found 3 dead branches as markers. As a result, this marker combination created by He Xiaoman appeared 7 times in a row in the following time. It is unclear whether it was to prove to He Xiaoman the true existence of the Mobius belt and the Penrose staircase, or to let her experience the thrill of sneaking into the wall. When He Xiaoman came out of the hospital, it was less than 5 o'clock. After autumn in the north, it got dark early, and the setting sun left a warm orange-yellow on the distant mountain top. It was about 2 kilometers on a dirt road from the town hospital to his 4th uncle's house. He Xiaoman planned to walk quickly and always arrive before it was completely dark. Don't expect to have dinner anymore. Just think of Aunt C's stingy personality, who is reluctant to throw away even if she farts or breaks beans. In addition, this separation has made everyone very unhappy. He Xiaoman has no hope of getting a meal at their house. Knowing what he would face upon returning this time, He Xiaoman brought his own dry food and water in his treasure bag. But the problem she has to face now is not that she can't eat at all, but that she is likely to camp out in the wilderness on this night in the early winter of late autumn. If she had known this, she might as well have just returned wearing a down jacket. Ah bah, if she had known this way, she might as well have stayed in that small hotel across from the town hospital without showing off. In fact, we can't blame He Xiaoman. Faced with Grandma's pleading eyes, she really couldn't refuse and could only obediently agree to live with her fourth uncle. The people in the town and village all know that you came back to see me, and they also know that we are splitting up this time. If you stay in the old Wang's inn, those people will chew their tongues and either say you are not sensible or that your uncle has mistreated you. Grandma doesn't like to hear any of these things. The words spoken by my grandmother were panting heavily, making it a burden for a patient who was almost unable to save himself in his old age. Without saying a word, He Xiaoman smiled and picked up his large shoulder bag before leaving. For my grandmother, my fourth uncle is the youngest and most beloved son she has ever seen since childhood. For He Xiaoman, my fourth uncle is not comparable to the bald accountant in her company. At least the bald accountant will calculate the commission money she earns as hard as a donkey on time every month without any difference. Although He Xiaoman would always treat the bald accountant and his curvy little lover to a good meal afterwards, overall, everyone continued this unspoken play in a friendly atmosphere of mutual affection. As soon as he thought of food, He Xiaoman's stomach couldn't help but make a gurgling sound. Even though he had been so strong throughout the day that gender was ignored by the entire company, He Xiaoman felt like he was just a physical child, knowing what hunger was, what fatigue was, and what hunger and cold were. She was not completely frightened and collapsed to the ground, partly because He Xiaoman was already bold, and secondly because she had heard of the legend of the wall-slaying technique. It is said that this thing will disappear at dawn. Now that she couldn't make a phone call and couldn't find a way out, she decided to take out the things in her bag to eat. Even if she was destined to circle here like a donkey pulling a mill until dawn, at least she had to eat enough before turning right. Opening his one-shoulder backpack, which he claimed to be like a treasure bag, something fell out with a clang. In the dark silence, the sound was particularly loud, making He Xiaoman tremble with fear. That is a thick-backed kitchen knife with dark and oily stains. A versatile knife, suitable for chopping bones and vegetables, with the only downside being a bit heavy. When He Xiaoman took this heirloom, he almost fell to the ground and chopped his own foot. Don't get me wrong. Although He Xiaoman's big satchel is called a treasure bag, it usually runs everywhere. Most of them put lighters, anti-wolf spray, etc., and it's the first time to put kitchen knives in it today. Because this kitchen knife was left by Zhang butcher's grandfather to his grandmother, who took it from his grandfather's hands. If calculated by age, it can truly be considered a family heirloom. But my grandmother wants my fourth uncle to take this knife, and taking it can be considered as inheriting Zhang butcher's family business. My fourth uncle said that since he even handed over the property of the old house to third sister, all these things would belong to third sister. Besides, they only have Shuyuan as their daughter, so we can't let Shuyuan, a female college student, become a butcher, right? Upon hearing this, He Xiaoman silently took out his makeup mirror from his treasure bag and checked it. He did not find any parts such as a beard or Adam's apple. He looked at his uncle in confusion and said, Zhang Shuyuan is your daughter and cannot inherit the kitchen knife. Is it true that He Xiaoman is actually a male college student? When his son refused to inherit the family business and even handed over the old house that he had been holding for over 100 years to Zhang Kaihua, the sister of Xing San, who was the mother of He Xiaoman. Don't think this is the fourth uncle's high character and integrity. As a big boss with 6 meat shops in the town and county, he is unwilling to compete for property with his sister who has just been kicked out of the house. He just doesn't want to inherit the old house, because Waishibeo has an unwritten rule that whoever inherits the ancestral house is responsible for supporting the elderly. Open a new pit, our refreshing female lead He Xiaoman shines on the stage. The internal investment has been completed. Welcome to Collect and Invest, and by the way, smash some votes. Asterisk 3, epsilon asterisk, end of this chapter. Chapter 2. Black. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Black, third sister, haven't you just divorced? The $2 given by that young man from He Xiaoman aren't enough for you to buy a house, let alone Xiaoman, who is so old, still hasn't achieved anything and has no place to go. Coincidentally, my newly renovated 3-story building belongs to you, and you can also take care of our mother. As a family, I don't care about those things that don't cost money anymore. Dear fourth uncle elevated these shameless words to an incredibly smooth and convincing tone. The old house turned into a 3-story small building with a single family and courtyard in his mouth. There was a river in front and a slope behind it, and more than 10 okubo trees were planted on the slope. The whole village was a 3 lifetimes, and 10-mile peach blossom, which was a place like immortals and a day like immortals. Why don't you go live? Why do you act like a fairy and insist on becoming a pork dealer? He couldn't even deceive his mother Zhang Kaihua, who had long been blinded by his brother's demonic aura, by running trains with his mouth full, let alone the old martial artist He Xiaoman who has been working in alcohol sales in D-City since graduating from college. Although my mother didn't believe my fourth uncle's words, she couldn't bear to let her paralyzed grandmother see her face in her old age, so she reluctantly agreed. Which family knows better to tolerate is destined to suffer losses. Isn't it like this all these years? He Xiaoman's divergent thoughts were suddenly pulled back by the buildings and sparse trees in front of him. Oh, he's a scroll. Isn't this the industry he just inherited? But even though she was constantly circling in one place, how did she run to Waishubeo 5 miles away? Is it because of her innate talent that she comprehended teleportation? He Xiaoman still has some impression of the location of the old house, but it is only limited to before the age of 10. After the age of 10, my fourth uncle first bought a house on the edge of Weio town. Later, the business of the meat shop became better and better, and the chain store opened in Zhongtai County. My fourth uncle decided to buy another house in the county town and went to work with my second uncle who opened a cooked food shop to transform into a city resident. The whole family has moved away, and the old house of Waishubeo is vacant, so after the age of 10, He Xiaoman gradually rarely sets foot in this small village, which is adjacent to Weio town and nestled by mountains and rivers. Thinking of the troubles at his grandmother's house makes He Xiaoman feel his mind buzzing. It seems that in that era, every family was born to several children, and there were also a lot of household chores that could not be sorted out. I originally wanted to find a place to squat and eat dinner, but I didn't expect to get lost and directly get lost at my doorstep. I put away my heirloom and opened the locked door with just one key. At this moment, she couldn't find a more appropriate expression besides sighing, fate. Although this garden villa has been inherited with great disturbance, it can finally solve her current dilemma of camping in the wilderness. In early winter, the northern region is wearing grade 10 mouth hoodies and pants to freeze outside all night. Even if grade is genuine, it cannot withstand it. He Xiaoman was certain that if he just squatted outside for the night, there would be only 2 places waiting for her tomorrow, either the Nanshan cemetery could secure a pit or the town hospital could secure a bed. So despite the strange coincidence that appeared in this house, He Xiaoman was still quite happy because she didn't want to go to either of those places above. A wooden fence surrounded this 3-story building, which couldn't even stop a rooster from walking. Even if it were a courtyard wall, the entrance was wide open and not even a single door was prepared. The yard was filled with half-human tall dry grass, and there were several fruit tree seedlings struggling to rise more than 10 centimeters inside, showing their proud woody identity. He Xiaoman knows that if there is relocation, the fruit trees in the yard can be requested for additional compensation from the developer. Her good uncle and aunt are a perfect match, always looking down at the road when going out just to have a chance to pick up money. The small path paved with stones in the middle of the yard is also overgrown with weeds. Knowing that there is no hope of relocation here, Aunt C has already moved back to the house that Uncle C bought in town. She is used to living in the clean and tidy buildings in the city. Xiaoman, a dilapidated villa that can collapse even with a sneeze, is not suitable for her to live in for a day. But He Xiaoman can. In the past 2 years, as a grassroots salesperson who often goes to various distribution points to carry out promotional activities, she has lived anywhere except for never camping. Fortunately, the water and electricity in this house are still connected. After all, at that time, in order to compete for the ownership of this old house, Aunt 4 pretended to move back and live for more than a year. The house that was renovated by my fourth uncle was very clean, and there was still a unique repainted smell of the new house because there was no one to live in and no heating measures were taken. Apart from being able to block the knife-like north wind, it didn't feel much warm. He Xiaoman rummaged through the room like a burglar, finally rummaging through a large camphor box and finding a set of semi-old bedding in grass to lay on the sofa. Although the sofa was a bit narrow, it was still warmer than an unburned heated Kong. There was also an electric kettle on the dusty glass coffee table. He Xiaoman didn't dare to drink tap water directly, but poured out his own mineral water and boiled it to drink. After drinking a cup of hot water and nibbling on some bread, He Xiaoman sighed with satisfaction. He used an electric kettle to boil some tap water and poured it into 2 mineral water bottles, which could barely be considered a hot water bag. Finally, there was some warmth in the cold blanket. He Xiaoman crawled in and wrapped himself tightly in a blanket, almost instantly falling asleep. The ups and downs of grassroots salespeople can cure all bed choices and insomnia. He Xiaoman deeply realized that all personalities are because they have not been beaten by life. I don't know how long I slept, but He Xiaoman felt the cool breeze constantly pouring into his neck. Chang Jin, didn't you close the window? He Xiaoman murmured as he wriggled in his bed like a silkworm pupa. No one answered her. As he finished speaking, He Xiaoman also woke up in a daze and suddenly remembered that this was not the sales agency in Wulang town, and her colleague and roommate Chang Jin was not with her either. The cool breeze once again sprayed fiercely at his neck, and He Xiaoman's whole body was stirred up, leaving the room pitch black. She instinctively reached out to the left and found her shoulder bag there, which was a good habit she had developed after often going alone to different counties and towns. She placed her most important things in the most accustomed and accessible places, and even in unfamiliar environments, she could always find what she wanted in one go. With 100 treasures in hand, He Xiaoman's rationality began to return as he gradually regained consciousness. The argument in front of my grandmother's hospital bed, the transfer of property in town, the 2 uncles who take advantage of the situation and still have to sell well, the aunt who watches the fire from the other side and takes good care of herself, and after getting lost at night, she ran an extra 5 miles. She is now in a mansion she just inherited in Xiaoman. He Xiaoman breathed a sigh of relief. No wonder it's so cold. This house is not meant for long-term living. Then He Xiaoman took a cold breath and his sweat and hair exploded all over his body. She remembers that she didn't turn off the lights. Why was it black in the room? Welcome to Invest, Ensure Quality, he. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Help. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Help. Because this house has no front door and the courtyard wall is virtually non-existent, He Xiaoman deliberately locked both the front and rear doors inside before going to bed, and the door of the house was also tightly closed. Sleeping trough, the door is open. He Xiaoman's pupils suddenly shrank, and all the blood seemed to surge up his head. A heart was about to pop out of his mouth. The only thing she could do was hold on to her treasure bag with trembling hands, quietly groping for her phone. Because she doesn't remember where the light switch is in this room. Everywhere is pitch black, and people always have more courage when there is light. But she hasn't even touched her phone yet. Hey, a long and ethereal sigh rang in He Xiaoman's ear. Bitter. Bitter. At this moment, He Xiaoman was struck by lightning. She opened her mouth wide and wanted to ask, "Who are you?" But at this moment, she felt the muscles in her mouth twitching and contracting like her heart. He Xiaoman kept moving his mouth like someone was holding his throat, but couldn't make a sound. I didn't pass the postgraduate entrance examination, and your father found a mistress and gave birth to a son. He refused to give you money to study and even wanted to force you to come back and marry a mining worker in his 40s. Your mother has a cowardly personality and doesn't like to argue with others. She took over your grandmother's mess and was kicked out by your father because you didn't listen. Your own work didn't go well, and your boyfriend's personality didn't get along well. You want to break up, but you're a bit reluctant. You work hard every day, just to live such a messy life. That voice was indecisive, yet it knew everything about He Xiaoman, every detail. He Xiaoman's work has come to a standstill, and the rising star of the company is trying to speed up the process of killing her on the beach. However, her colleagues either got married and went home to have children, or used various relationships to become her superiors, and 2 others looking for new jobs. Currently, at the same time, there are only high achievers and low achievers. He Xiaoman is still struggling not to be left behind by the company's broken car. How did Auntie stand by and watch my mother's situation this time, and how did second Auntie stir up trouble and occasionally show off her precious son and daughter, and then ask her about her situation, whether she has been promoted to work? Have you bought a car yet? Has the building been supplied yet? When will you eat your wedding candy? Have you saved hundreds of thousands after all these years of hard work? Anyway, just ask whatever's bothering you. Look at your relatives, friends, colleagues, they're all bad things. You're so pitiful. He Xiaoman suddenly felt that this person was just too kind. He understood all his heartache, helplessness, struggle, and confusion. Every word he said was so precise and appropriate, it was like a human confidant bestowed upon her by heaven. Come on, come here and you'll be relieved. Come on, come on. Suddenly, a large, soft and warm light appeared in front of her. He Xiaoman tried his best to grab the door that had been blocking him, squeezing inside as if there were still many people around him fighting and competing with her. He Xiaoman is angry, grabbing everything. Even this little light and warmth, you want to grab mine. Her anger starts from the bottom of her heart. Do you think that I, Lon Beer, have blown out the power of He Xiaoman to destroy the boss? She suddenly kicked out, and a familiar sound rang out. He Xiaoman suddenly woke up and found himself standing under the beam, stepping on the chair and trying to push his neck up. Moonlight shone through the frosted window, hazy and cold. He Xiaoman was horrified to see that at some point, a tightly fastened rope was hanging from the roof beam. She actually wants to hang herself. Hee, wake up. It's late, hee. At this moment, He Xiaoman could hear clearly the voice of an elderly man, but the tone of his speech was twisted with an indescribable awkwardness. He Xiaoman also understood why the voice said, "It's too late," because the stool under his feet flew out on its own, as if it had been kicked away by someone. Although invisible, He Xiaoman also knew it was that person, the one who constantly talked about all her frustrations and seduced the darkest and most gloomy negative emotions in her heart. The person who lured himself to hang himself. He Xiaoman instantly experienced the feeling after hanging, suffocation and pain. As the rope tightened her neck, she felt her whole body start to soften, her head became heavy, and she had no strength. Did I really just die like this? I'm not willing to accept it. She's the only pillar for my mom to survive now. If she dies, my mom will definitely not be able to survive either. For a moment, her mind turned 1,000 times, and she told herself not to panic, there must be a way. I heard that hanging someone is considered a reckless death, and she will never have the qualification to be reincarnated in the next life. She is a beautiful woman from the He family, so she doesn't want to be a beast. He Xiaoman's hands were hanging on both sides of her body, and her strength had begun to rapidly peel off her body. However, just as her fingers were convulsing, she accidentally touched something hard, and He Xiaoman suddenly felt a sense of joy in his heart. Strive to calm your heartbeat, concentrate all your strength on your own hand, and also concentrate all your will to survive on your own hand. She touched a lighter. Life can always create miracles. He Xiaoman didn't know how he did it, maybe it was because her life shouldn't end, or maybe God heard her unwilling cry, or maybe his mother and grandmother didn't want the white-haired person to give the black-haired person away. In short, before she was about to completely suffocate, she burned the rope and fell with a plop. Ah! Ah ah ah! How dare you! He Xiaoman successfully saved himself, and the voice that had always been in control suddenly went crazy. He Xiaoman didn't have the heart to pay attention to him. She gasped heavily and groped on the ground with her hands. As the cold handle of the knife was held in her hand, He Xiaoman suddenly stood up and slashed wildly at her side. She glared angrily with her eyes, slashed and cursed hoarsely in her throat, "You curly guy, dare to trick me into hanging, I'll kill your whole family, curly guy. You who can't survive, dare to trick me into hanging. Bitch, dare you strike me. That's my knife, you." With an unusually mournful shout, the whole world cleared up. It seems that the bone-chilling feeling has also disappeared. This house is just like before when she just came in, leaving her alone. After tossing around for a while, feeling scared and tired, He Xiaoman kept panting and trying hard to think for a while before finally remembering the position of the fluorescent light switch. With a loud bang, the light finally lit up again. He Xiaoman was holding the pancake that had saved his life in his right hand, and another life-saving hero in his left hand, a disposable lighter. In the new book period, collecting is important, and free investment is also important. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Analysis. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Analysis. Glancing around the room, the extremely cold feeling seemed to be really moving away, but He Xiaoman was still trembling all over, and it was unclear whether he was scared by tonight's experience or simply because of the cold weather. Closing the door, He Xiaoman returned to bed again. No matter how big her heart was, she dared not sleep. She charged her phone and prepared to play games all night to pass the time. She didn't want to wake up in the darkness before the dead ghost came to tell her about the difficulties and grievances of life. Difficulty and injustice, why do you still advise me to come and die for you? On a pitch-black and silent winter night in the mountain village, a solitary light was reflected in this 3-story building, but soon no darkness engulfed it. He Xiaoman was once again awakened by the cold wind blowing on his face. The cold and terrifying feeling once again arrived, making He Xiaoman feel like he was going crazy. She picked up her kitchen knife and prepared to jump up and chop wildly. If she could run away from you once, she could run away from you twice. However, before she could finish her apprenticeship, she died first. Before she could fully unleash her power, she stumbled and almost hit herself. He Xiaoman suddenly realized that it was already dawn, and she was lying in the yard. The culprit that tripped her was the set of luggage she had covered last night. The early winter sun shone on her icy face like a simulation prop without any heating effect. It turned out that what was blowing on her face this time was really just a north wind. But when did she fall asleep last night when she was awake in the room playing single-player games? Did you see yourself unable to hang and die, ready to freeze her alive? There is a saying in the countryside that every ghost who dies suddenly must find someone to end their life in the same way as themselves, so that they can continue to reincarnate and reincarnate, which is commonly known as catching and replacing. He Xiaoman felt that she must have been mistaken for the candidate to catch a substitute last night. When the other party saw that one plan failed, they came up with another plan. As a result, she was blessed with great fortune, blessed by her ancestors' kitchen knives, and did not die. However, the happiness in her heart was quickly masked by anger. I, He Xiaoman, was kind to others and believed that I had no grudges with the old hanging ghost in this house. Recently, I have no grudges. If I fail to catch the replacement, it means that I, He Xiaoman, should not die. Why is this endless? Based on my years of preference for horror movies and supernatural novels, evil has always been invincible. Although the sun seems to have no use for heating at this moment, its exorcism effect should still be present. He Xiaoman, who shares a common habit with the northeast mythical beast Silly Roe Deer, insisted on going back to see the scene where she almost successfully committed suicide by hanging a beam. The following facts prove that her decision was truly a bit unpredictable. The room was still empty and cold, not much different from last night, but He Xiaoman almost became a stepping stone on his path to death. He found a small house-shaped sign near the stool. The house-type sign looks like it is made of the most ordinary Qinghai jade, with a water-green color that leans towards gray and slightly impurities. It can be sold for 30 to 50 yuan when placed on a small stall. The sculptor is not outstanding either. The simple and straightforward technique of the knife is slightly rough, and the pointed roof of the house is made of fish-scale tiles, which looks like an ordinary small residential house. It's just that He Xiaoman knows this thing is not normal. Because when she picked it up and touched it with her hand, a line of sparkling blue subtitles appeared in front of her. Architecture. Rudimentary residential buildings level. Junior address. Number 55 3rd Street, Zone E detected at the temporary holder owns a property that can be used for projection. Does it consume 10,000 points of popularity or a 10-year lifespan to transfer this property deed? There is also an additional option attached under the option. Popularity or lifespan. He Xiaoman had a black question mark on his face. What kind of girl is this? Isn't it too unscientific? He Xiaoman has always believed that all unscientific things can ultimately be explained by science, and anything that cannot be explained by science can only be because the science he knows is not yet scientific enough. But from yesterday's trick of hitting the wall to catching a substitute in the middle of the night, to later when I was awake playing games but ended up falling asleep and being thrown out, everything was shrouded in mystery, which was really unscientific. Is it that old hanging master who came up with a poisonous plan again? As long as one chooses to transfer ownership with a 10-year lifespan, they will immediately pass away on the spot and become a substitute for him. But the brand created by this old man is also too scientific, isn't it? It feels like the protagonist's golden finger in a fantasy novel has been credited. He Xiaoman was taken aback. Isn't this actually her golden finger? Perhaps due to a prolonged lack of response, the subtitle flashed in front of me. Considering that the original homeowner's mission failed and died on the mission plane, please make a choice within 10 minutes of receiving the property deed. If the duration exceeds, the property deed will be reclaimed by the housing authority. The countdown will now begin. He Xiaoman looked at the timer with the elusive 9 feet 59 inches, words floating in front of him, which had already started counting seconds, and his heart suddenly felt a sense of unease. Just like being deceived into hanging yesterday, He Xiaoman reminded himself not to panic. The opportunity and inexplicable danger in front of him were a pair of twin brothers. He chose to eat spicy food right, and chose someone else to go to her house to eat spicy food wrong. If this finger pokes down, life and death are in between. Lu Ruoying, a famous singer, had warned everyone as expected. Some people are not there once they poke. He Xiaoman began to review yesterday's events from the beginning like a movie. The train arrived in Zhongtai County in the middle of the night and carpooled to Weiyou Town. We went to the town with our already gathered family to transfer the house directly to our own name. We had a very unpleasant lunch at noon and were only allowed to visit our grandmother at the hospital in the afternoon. Well, she was sure that everything was normal until she came out of the hospital, completely following her guests all the way out of the company but completely going against her own wishes. He Xiaoman guessed that his mother would definitely agree to take care of his grandmother, because everyone else was busy with more important things. Only his mother, who was the only one, said, not only did she lose her roof, but she also happened to divorce and not have to take care of her husband and children. Xiaoman could take care of herself, but she couldn't get married for the time being. Third sister was as idle as the 5 spines and 6 beasts on the roof of a mountain temple. This was the original words of her fourth aunt. This passage is not very aggressive but extremely insulting. Although my mother was so angry that she trembled all over, everyone had to admit that what she said made sense. Although He Xiaoman is not very happy, he still has to face reality. Then, the fourth aunt, who successfully broke free from the burden of her grandmother, went home to pack up and prepare to return to the county town, while He Xiaoman accompanied her mother to the hospital to take over the care of her grandmother. All the unusual things started when He Xiaoman got lost. P.S. Remember to save it, babies. The investment has not yet reached 100, and we have received a signed website message. Please rest assured to invest, Momo. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Transfer of ownership. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Transfer of ownership. In her memory, she was so tired that she kept spinning around like a dog, but in fact, she had already crossed over to her fourth uncle's house and unknowingly arrived at the old house. He Xiaoman grasped the key to a problem, her eyes lit up, that ancestral kitchen knife. The trap of hitting the wall was accidentally solved by accidentally dropping a kitchen knife on the ground. Following the line of the kitchen knife, He Xiaoman continued to stroke it. The failure of hanging was also due to the kitchen knife falling to the ground, waking up my confused self. Bitch, if you dare to chop me, that's my sword. You're still. The voice of an old man, who was full of vicissitudes, twisted and said it like a woman. That's my knife, you still. He Xiaoman chewed on this unfinished sentence, and according to normal logic, the following should be returned to me by you. Since the captive who was hanged had to be hanged in order to be released, why did this potential enemy, who is not male or female, throw themselves outside and want to freeze themselves to death? That is to say, He Xiaoman's previous inference was incorrect. The purpose of the person who deceived her to hang or the unknown creature was that kitchen knife. The more He Xiaoman thinks about it, the more he feels that this is the correct version. She was originally trapped by the wall being hit by a kitchen knife, but the wall disappeared and she was directly seen in front of the old house. But this is clearly my kitchen knife, the heirloom of the Zhang family. He Xiaoman murmured. It's quite ironic to think about it, but the heirloom of the Zhang family was passed on to the daughter of the He family, and there was something strange claiming that the kitchen knife belonged to it. Suddenly, this useless kitchen knife became a sought-after item. At this point, He Xiaoman has successfully figured out the background of most things. The subtitle of the house once said that the original homeowner's mission failed and he died on the mission plane. Combined with the words of the old hanging master and what happened after his reckless chopping, He Xiaoman felt that the old hanging master was actually the original homeowner, and what she thought was a haunted incident was actually the original homeowner wanting to get this ancestral kitchen knife. However, in the past few days, due to a dispute at home, Grandma, who has always been stubborn, actually took the kitchen knife to the hospital, leaving the homeowner with nothing to do. Perhaps at that time, when she was closer to the old house, the homeowner used some means to survey and found a kitchen knife, which led to the incident of a sneak hit on the wall. It is estimated that the original homeowner at that time was trying to exhaust herself in the sneak hit on the wall, but suddenly the kitchen knife fell out and shattered the illusion of sneak hit on the wall. Is it possible that this kitchen knife is actually quite extraordinary? Actually, it's a dragon slaying. A kitchen knife. That's about it. The original homeowner pretended to be mischievous and deceived in order to obtain his kitchen knife. However, by chance, he not only failed to obtain his mission item, but was also killed by his own reckless chopping. And the Qinghai jade-like property deed can be considered as the equipment that killed the original owner of this elite monster. Seeing that time had already reached 1.15 seconds, He Xiaoman felt a bit resentful. Even though his sister was beautiful and handsome, it was a bit excessive to have to decide on life and death matters in just 10 minutes. 10 minutes, once chosen incorrectly, both my mother and grandmother will face the tragedy of a white-haired person giving a black-haired person away. He Xiaoman's tearful eyes, life is short and urgent. Knowing that time waits for no one, she no longer has the possibility of hesitating. Either she takes a risk and guesses correctly that she has the golden finger and the colorful and dangerous life that follows. If she guesses incorrectly, next year will be her death day today. Either give up completely and continue to work on her lawn beer short film, living tirelessly in the counties and towns around D-City, earning money that cannot be sustained or starved, and having a relationship that is neither too bitter nor too sweet, living a life that is neither good nor bad. He Xiaoman chose the former. Then she faced a second choice. 10,000 popularity or 10 years of lifespan. He Xiaoman naturally chose the former. Popularity is something that can be gradually accumulated through hard work, and life can only be surpassed by fewer without exception, unless you go to cultivate immortality. He Xiaoman is 27 years old this year. If her lifespan does not reach 37, then if she pokes her finger, He Xiaoman will die peacefully. So she poked her finger at 10,000 people. The familiar light curtain lit up again. Sorry, you have not yet owned a residential property in this area, and your popularity is not included in the statistics, so you cannot pay for this transaction. Sigh, I'll go. As time passed, He Xiaoman closed his eyes and directly poked at the option of a 10-year lifespan. She thinks setting this damn popularity option is just to make people angry. A suffocating silence, as she listened to her dear's chaotic heartbeat and realized how close success and death were to He Xiaoman, finally arrived at the answer she wanted. Successful transfer of ownership. Almost in that moment, a blue light flashed, and the small Qinghai jade-like house in He Xiaoman's palm disappeared. At the same time, a tall and beautiful woman with long hair was standing in front of a somewhat dilapidated small bungalow, gritting her teeth with a pale face. Her well-cut waist-length skirt and diamond-studded mid-heeled shoes were worth a lot at first glance, and her luxurious demeanor was somewhat out of place in this slum-like area. Go home, don't waste time in this place, a slender man patted her shoulder. Don't worry, this house deed is one of the engagement gifts that Sangu gave you. The woman's gaze was sinister as she gazed at the small bungalow, which was not yet the size of a toilet at home. Dare to transfer ownership of my house, I want her to die. Okay, we'll all listen to you, but what you need to do now is go home and rest up. Fengshen will be back tonight. The man doesn't seem to be a good-tempered person, but he is willing to put down his figure and keep comforting the beautiful woman in the dress with warm words. But the woman looked back at the dilapidated bungalow with hatred. It was the building token she had obtained after completing 3 difficult tasks, and after building the house, someone snatched it away. Not willing to accept it. Qianyu, I don't understand why you came to the slums to prove your value to a group of landlords. A night pearl doesn't need to be compared in size or density to a stone, its existence is its value. Qianyu glanced sideways at his third brother and said coquettishly, all right, third brother. So you compared me to something like the night pearl that's thrown into the yard as a street lamp. Wow, you've all gone to live in such a place. It's not as valuable as those night pearls in our yard. Qianyu punched Sanji's shoulder with a small fist, and the man tilted his head and smiled at her, saying, you've had enough fighting. You're not angry anymore. Then let's go to the Human Resources Department to clear the file. Mom worries about you every day. Qianyu snorted lightly and said, so your ultimate goal is to flatter our mother, right? Yeah, the man admitted confidently. She said I'll take you home, so she won't push me to get married. It's not impossible to cancel the file and go home, but you need to help me breathe a sigh of relief. Qianyu's eyes twitched and she thought to herself. P.S. Remember to collect it, babies. If there are still investment quotas, you can also invest. The contract will be sent tomorrow. The difficulties of the new book period need not be repeated. I believe everyone knows that lifting your finger can help with TNT. Thank you all. You must keep it, otherwise you will lose it if you look at it. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Hatred. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Hatred. I want you to get that woman first, make her fall in love with you wholeheartedly, then abandon her, and let her know the pain of losing and regaining. As for the broken house deed, just give it to any of your subordinates. I don't want this useless thing as a gift, I'll be annoyed when I see it. Men are speechless. Qianyu, let's retrieve the property deed and send her back to the Jiejie realm to continue her life cycle. That kind of person is not worth your attention. I don't. That slut snatched my mission item and even killed me with my mission kitchen knife. If it weren't for the substitute doll you gave me, I wouldn't have been able to come back. The man, who had always been indifferent and smiling, immediately became angry upon hearing this, and his eyes showed a chilling murderous intent. However, his words became even more gentle. Okay, third brother will listen to you. Dare to harm his little sister, not only do you have to double it back, but you also have to shatter the 3 souls of this slut, leaving her only 7 souls to be a beast forever. He Xiaoman didn't know that she had already been targeted, let alone that his golden finger, which cost him 10 years to transfer ownership, was actually so cheap in the eyes of others. She is enthusiastically inspecting her house. He Xiaoman, who was self-taught, stretched out his palm and gently swiped in the air. The previous light curtain reappeared in front of him, with a miniature 3-story building next to it accompanied by a table. Architecture. Rudimentary residential buildings level. Junior address. Number 55 3rd Street, Zone E owner. He Xiaoman Zhengjai Spirit Beast. Nun projection address. Number 1 Waishubeo Village, Weio Town, Zhongtai County, Jinshui City, Dongning Province, Xia Province unlocked area. Bedroom, Level 1, homeowners resting in designated areas will receive double the effect. Popularity. 10 node. 0 material. 0 He Xiaoman carefully read each item, and the simple residential house should be referred to as the house she transferred ownership of, rather than the 3-story villa she currently owns, although it is also so simple that it can only deceive ghosts. There are 2 addresses for the house, and He Xiaoman knows that the one in front should be the true location of the transfer house, while the one behind is marked with a projection, which is the address of the old house that He Xiaoman has just inherited. As for how to get to that residential house that he had exchanged for with a lifespan of 10 years, He Xiaoman currently doesn't know. What is eye-catching is the unlocking area, which indicates that the house she transferred has certain functions that can be revealed to her current world through the projector. Once again, it is confirmed that someone else's golden finger is a system or special function, while her cheat, He Xiaoman, is the property deed of that Qinghai jade. Sure enough, the official explanation came soon. Some characteristics of the spirit beasts in the town can have an impact on the homeowner, so the homeowner needs to be cautious and cannot change them once selected. Popularity, nodes, and materials are consumables that can be obtained in the task. Popularity can be used to exchange for lifespan, draw prizes, and support spirit beasts in the town. Nodes are used for spatiotemporal transmission and localization projection during each task. The materials can be used for regional unlocking, upgrading, synthesis, etc. Please actively cooperate with the various tasks posted on the bulletin board. Tasks have their own beauty, missions have their own millet, missions have their own longevity method, missions have their own golden house. Don't ask why you did it right. He Xiaoman's eyes are wide open, so this guy who has been dry displaying subtitles sometimes has a play naughty. How does she feel that these words seem familiar to her? Isn't it the brainwashing language she often uses to talk to those sales guides when translated? Anyway, the shadow of He Xiaoman losing his 10-year lifespan due to the transfer of property was finally dispelled by the annotations given to beginners in the subtitles. As long as there is a way to gain popularity, her lifespan will have a chance to make up for it again. Moreover, He Xiaoman thinks by analogy that if she works hard on tasks and earns more popularity, can her mother, grandmother, and she all realize their beautiful wish of immortality. He Xiaoman was thinking about how she could receive tasks to earn a lot of popularity and prolong her lifespan. Suddenly, her phone ringtone rang melodiously, and without the original homeowner playing tricks, her phone signal returned to full capacity. Hello. Mom, what's wrong? He Xiaoman just finished saying these words and felt his nose itch, sneezing unusually loudly. Xiaoman, is your fourth uncle's house cold? Have you caught a cold? Mom asked without answering. I'm fine. After sneezing, He Xiaoman realized that his nose was a bit stuffy and his head was a bit sore. It was possible that he had really caught a cold. The biggest characteristic of my mother is that she can't grasp the key point when speaking. After discussing the question of whether He Xiaoman has a cold or not, Zhang Kaihua finally remembered the purpose of her phone call. Your grandmother and I have already finished breakfast, you don't have to worry about us. He Xiaoman understood what his mother meant, and Zhang Kaihua knew better about his younger brother and daughter-in-law's virtues than anyone else. Now that they have successfully shed the blame, they have kindly given Zhang Kaihua, the next wife, a house. Whether one's own daughter can make it to breakfast is a question, so there's no need to think about having someone bring warm food from home like the two patients in the same room. Even if Xiaoman can cook, her kitchen will not be lent to her. Because the fourth daughter-in-law's son Lixia has a cleanliness fetish and never wants others to touch her belongings. This is also the fundamental reason why Lao Si would rather leave the old house than take care of the elderly, as son Lixia despises her mother-in-law for burying her. At the thought of this, Zhang Kaihua felt uncomfortable. Her younger brother Zhang Guoyin was raised by this buried old lady. Why didn't she dislike her? How many days did you take off this time when you came back? Your grandmother is fine now, and the house has been sold out. If there's nothing else to do, you can go back to work today and don't have to come to the hospital. Although Xiaoman never mentioned the hard work at work, his daughter is the flesh that fell from her body. How can she hide from Zhang Caihua's mother whether she's doing well or not? Originally, a girl named He Xiaoman was not eligible to participate in the Zhang family split. However, now that Zhang Kaihua has just divorced, only He Xiaoman can help come up with ideas. In addition, Zhang Kaihua feels that she is too old to find anyone else to marry and have children. Xiaoman is her only heir. Instead of having to go through all the necessary procedures to transfer the house to Xiaoman for 10 or 8 years, it is better to just go through them once and for all. That's why He Xiaoman took a leave. In winter, the sales of beer and draft beer in the north are relatively lower, and the company is not so busy. However, when He Xiaoman took a leave, he still looked at the big horse face of his supervisor for a while and said a lot of good things before getting a 3-day leave. Fake it was given, but she didn't even think about the full attendance of 500 yuan this month. The big horse face that covers the sky in the distribution department of Ningxi will definitely still give He Xiaoman full attendance, and then 500 yuan full attendance will quietly enter his pocket. Thank you to the babies for recommending tickets and collecting investment, thank you everyone. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Zheng He's wife. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 7 Zheng He's wife. This unspoken rule is well known to everyone but helpless. If you cannot shake the rules, either roll or endure, there is no other way. He Xiaoman thought that his grandmother's condition is now stable, and the doctor also said that in about half a month, if there are no accidents, he can go home and get intravenous thrombolysis to slowly recover. It is impossible to fully recover, but fortunately, the location of the grandmother's blood clot is still good, and she was discovered in a timely manner. Now, she is gradually recovering. Just as He Xiaoman was about to promise his mother to tidy up and return to D City, he suddenly thought of a question. If the original homeowner had already been chopped to death by his own kitchen knife last night, then who would have thrown himself out of the house, including a person and a blanket? She didn't even believe it when she was beaten to death. She could have reached her own level of sleepwalking alone, but surprisingly came out with equipment. It's okay to say that what's being thrown out now is oneself. If it's my grandmother and mother who are all of the same age, my grandmother is still half paralyzed. If she were to be thrown out of the house like this in winter, it would be fatal. I don't know if I'm unlucky or lucky. In order to get more compensation for relocation, my uncle and aunt lived here for almost a year after raising the height of the old house. They didn't have anything to do, but when they arrived, they were thrown out. But if she's unlucky, firstly she got a family heirloom's kitchen knife, which is a treasure that can kill a soul like former homeowner. Secondly, now that she can rest in a designated bedroom, she can achieve double the effect. It is estimated that her current function is to sleep more sweetly and restore her mental state better. But you can't just stop going to work just because you're asleep, can you? People always have to eat just right. The house is projected on the deed, and He Xiaoman cannot put the house on wheels and push it to D-City. Thinking of those terrible things at the company, as well as his own brainless cheats and the bulletin board where he doesn't know what kind of tasks will be released, He Xiaoman felt his mind buzzing. Anyway, there are still 2 days off, and it's only a little over 4 hours by car back to D-City. He Xiaoman decided to stay at his old house for one night to see how great the double effect sleep is. If he can sleep with any special abilities, he will earn it himself. Secondly, it is also to determine why she appeared outside the house. If she wakes up outside tomorrow morning, she may have to go find Xian to come and take a look. While wandering aimlessly about when to get married, buy a house, have children, and even where to hold a banquet, my mother quickly sorted out what she should do next. Mom, I took a 3-day leave from the company this time. Now you have to take care of my grandmother in the hospital. I will go to the old house to see if I can stay, and whether I have enough luggage, bedding, and daily necessities. Also, there is no burning here. I need to go to the town to buy some coal for you and burn the boiler and Kong for 2 days first. In northern rural areas, winter is really cold. Don't talk about the cold in the south being a magical attack, and the cold in the north being a physical attack. When faced with drops of water that often turn into ice at -20 degrees Celsius, you have to stand aside from any kind of magical attack. He Xiaoman did not lie to his mother about this matter. She should take care of these tiring and freezing tasks. My grandmother and mother are 1 year old and 1 week, so we must prepare all these things for them before they are discharged from the hospital. Who is called He Xiaoman's innate divine power? He Xiaoman has great strength, from childhood to adulthood, no one dares to argue with her. He dare not say he is pulling out a willow tree upside down. Anyway, the company is used to enslaving her as a man. This is also one of the reasons why she served as the leader of the township large market small school and the talented lawn beer company. Whether it's outbound or inbound, she always carries the most beer boxes. Her alcohol tolerance should not be underestimated once there is a need for wine mixing. If it weren't for the low income in the profession, He Xiaoman, who possesses the above 2 strengths, was once suspected of having changed his sex. Anyone who goes through countless hardships to change their sex is definitely not here to carry a beer box. As he took out his phone and wrote a shopping list in a memo, He Xiaoman calculated that he would have to take another 3 days off next month. If nothing unexpected happened, both his grandmother and mother would have to retire in this house. Therefore, the courtyard walls and gates cannot be fooled into being so fresh and rustic. In recent years, hunting has been banned in the mountains, and the government has paid more attention to environmental protection. Although we haven't seen a large wild beast like the big black blind northeast tiger yet, I heard that Xiaotang village across the mountain has been visited by wild boars this year. What if the first resident to come to Waishubeo is her mansion, with a fence on the courtyard and no entrance at all, and wild boars wandering around like they do in their own backyard? The population in rural areas is already small, and they are all old residents who have lived for decades. It is not necessary to guard against people, but it is inevitable that various small and medium-sized wild animals such as rabbits, cats, yellow rats, and wolves will visit at the foot of the mountain. Oh, this is Xiaoman, right? Did you come back to see your grandmother? A somewhat familiar loud voice interrupted He Xiaoman's dual use. Looking up, it turned out to be Zheng He's wife, who was not yet 40 years old and had no relatives. However, because she lived in or outside the village, He Xiaoman wanted to call her Aunt San. Have you eaten yet, Auntie San? Zheng He's wife, with her big eyes rolling left and right, suddenly pulled her to the side of the road and whispered, "It seems like you're from the old house." He Xiaoman nodded, his gaze just right, showing a sense of confusion as he looked at Zheng He's wife. "Old Yuan. Is Yuan Duong still here?" Her voice was almost whispering, her lips pressed against He Xiaoman's ear, and she whispered, as if afraid of being heard. But the Zheng He and Lin San households, who are only over 100 meters away from the old house, are all 3-story small buildings without exception. Lin San exaggeratedly built 2 more side rooms in the courtyard, making the originally spacious courtyard feel somewhat like a quadrangle. "Just like my 4th uncle, how happy I was when I built it, how troublesome it is now because the tycoon who was planning to develop the Pear Blossom Mountain withdrew his investment, and the relocation of the entire Xiaoman village, which had caused great anxiety, came to an end. Whoever built this tofu scum house specifically for the purpose of making money will suffer." What He Xiaoman asked her was a bit vague. This third aunt's thinking span is a bit wide, and she can't keep up. Seeing He Xiaoman's bewildered expression, Zheng He's wife had already found the answer on her own. Her chubby, carrot-like hands covered her mouth, and big bull's eyes turned as if they were about to roll out. "Your 4th aunt came to see the house, probably old Yuan too was scared." "Oh, look at my broken mouth, what kind of Xiaoman are you going to?" Zheng He's wife seemed to suddenly realize something and abruptly turned a corner to ask about something else. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. The Eye of Reincarnation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. The Eye of Reincarnation. Although Zheng He's wife was talking to He Xiaoman in the chilly wind, the unique shrewd expression of rural women almost wrote, "Come ask me, I know everything," on her face. "Okay, as you wish." Faced with He Xiaoman's extremely curious questions, Zheng He's wife naturally knew everything without hesitation. "I'll tell you about this. Don't tell anyone about it, especially your 4th aunt. If it gets out, then who am I? Don't let anyone know." The top loudspeaker of Xiaoman finished broadcasting, and Zheng He's wife waved her hand to He Xiaoman, returning home satisfied. She just can't stand Zhang Xi's wife's arrogant behavior. What's so remarkable about opening a few pork shops? Isn't he just a pig killer? The most important thing is, how could anyone be so deceitful? Knowing that their house was haunted and deceiving their own mother and sister to come back to live, they ran far away. Zhang Kaihua is an honest person, but her daughter He Xiaoman is not easy to deal with at first glance. This time, the old Zhang family has a big melon to eat, Zheng He's wife thought happily. After listening to these rumors, He Xiaoman walked to the town according to the original plan and bought coal. He also bought a pile of construction waste wood sold by relocated households in the town as firewood, and then sat in the coal truck back to his mansion. He Xiaoman's face didn't even recover. He Xiaoman never saw Yuan Duong, who was hired to come and see the house, probably because he was sent away by his 4th aunt. After all, he was hired and had to pay wages. My good uncle and aunt can no longer be praised with the word immoral. At this point, my uncle's highly efficient and proactive spending behavior finally found a more reasonable explanation. The old house has been haunted since it was renovated into a 3-story building by my uncle from a BJ flat. However, at that time, various rumors about relocation and compensation were rampant, and the whole village was fanatically dreaming of overnight wealth. The 4th uncle and aunt were driven by greed and covered up this matter to death, leaving outsiders completely unaware of any news. In fact, from that time on, they would be thrown out of the house every once in a while. They often slept in the warm morning light until they woke up naturally, and even their elderly grandmother was not spared. He Xiaoman believes that the asymptomatic illness of his grandmother, who has always been in good health, is likely related to being often thrown out of the house to blow cold air. Then the wealthy developer suddenly switched to contracting Xuanlong Temple as a scenic area for development. Lihua Mountain became an abandoned child, my grandmother fell ill, and my uncle and aunt finally came out of the old house openly under the pretext of moving to the hospital to take care of the elderly. However, at that time they had not completely given up and spent a lot of money hiring an old bachelor from the town, Yuan Duong, to come and help take care of the house. The old house of the Zhang family is probably the most remote and spacious courtyard in the entire Waishubeo area. The fourth uncle, who is not interested in anything, took a liking to the old house, which is particularly close to the Pear Blossom Mountain. There is a small hill behind the river in front of it, and there are also more than 10 kubo peach trees that have been bearing fruit for a long time. It is certain that the developer will choose it as a farmhouse-type hotel, so he reinforced the original BJ level and quickly added 2 floors to it. But with further reinforcement, how could the foundation of a bungalow bear the weight of an extra 2 floors out of thin air? In order to avoid the tragedy of being deceived by fate and making money without losing one's life, the second floor of He Xiaoman's mansion is almost entirely made of wood. Even if it is necessary to use soil and stone, it can be made as thin as possible, and the third floor is even more exaggerated, but it is just a fraud of wrapping a thick paper shell on the second floor roof with plastic film and then getting some sand and cement. He Xiaoman can kick down the house on the third floor with just 1 foot. Therefore, whenever uncle mentioned this 3-story villa, He Xiaoman's mouth would always twitch uncontrollably. Fourth uncle and aunt understood the truth that, as long as I am not embarrassed, it will always be others who are embarrassed. They portrayed themselves as a pair who had to leave their mother in the countryside for business. It was only then that the poor divorced sister gave away their beloved super luxurious villa with beautiful scenery. Yeah, you see how great you two are. Giving a house to your mother also comes with an unknown species that doesn't allow the owner to live in the house. Because the entire 2-story house upstairs is full of deceiving people, and only the 3 old houses on the first floor can accommodate people. There is a villa on the 3rd floor, but there is not even a miscellaneous room. He Xiaoman had to unload all the 2 tons of coal into the yard. Find a relatively sharp sickle, and He Xiaoman wears his leather gloves to cut off the half-human tall weeds and thorny vines in the yard. This thing is a good material for starting a fire. After cutting for about 3 hours, He Xiaoman realized that it was really like a mountain separating rows. Her delicate hands wouldn't even have a blister when moving a beer box for a day. But now, even with gloves on, her palms and fingers are still covered in blisters of all sizes. Stretching his sore waist, he watched as the once barren courtyard was cleaned up completely. The eerie feeling seemed to fade away, at least not so much related to the haunted house at first glance. At this moment, He Xiaoman found a sense of achievement. He Xiaoman didn't care about the fact that his fourth uncle and his wife were afraid to make a fuss about the relocation payment before. You should know that the Northeast was once the land of shamanism, and when He Xiaoman was a child, there were occasional, capable people, who went down to the village to help the farmers solve their problems. Now, these high-level people have risen again, and there are always a few talented old immortals in 10 miles and 8 villages who can solve these problems. When she was a child, she didn't listen too much to stories about the fox fairy Huang Xian repaying kindness and revenge, as well as the female ghost spending money to buy milk powder for her child at night. This is also why she can be so calm when facing the trick of hitting the wall. These evil things cannot be solved by a great immortal. If there is one, it must be that the money is not in place or the immortal has been exhausted. Sometimes it's not necessary to find a uniform millet when facing difficulties. We will try our best not to cause trouble to the country if we can solve it ourselves. After finishing her busy work, He Xiaoman suddenly felt the need to solve some livelihood problems. The place of the 5 grains reincarnation was still in the southwest corner of the courtyard, and she ran and killed it all the way. Everything is good in rural areas, but the heating and toilet issues in the north are really incomparable to those in cities. Here we're talking about the majority. Don't come looking for a sense of existence with the spirit of the bar. Especially in old houses with particularly spacious courtyards, going to the restroom in winter can be as destructive as being suddenly thrown to the North Pole while sunbathing on the equator. He Xiaoman muttered, "When I have money, I'll either find a seat in the house or build a fully enclosed copying corridor in the yard like in ancient times." Then she walked into the toilet built with wooden boards and red bricks. The toilet was covered and couldn't shine on the sun, so the septic tank had frozen inside. Half of her head was exposed, and she stared at He Xiaoman with wide-open eyes. "I will send the contract tomorrow. Now let me explain the update time, although Cha-Cha is actually a very untimely villain. During the new book period, we will try our best to ensure that tea leaves are updated twice a day. Let's strive to get the 30-day achievement to give the investment babies a wave of benefits. The update time is 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. respectively. If the health of tea leaves allows, they will be updated irregularly. Children should collect and recommend more." End of this chapter. Chapter 9. This is the customer. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. This is the customer. He Xiaoman felt a sudden sensation all over his body, and there was no urge to urinate. The toilet in the old house is a place with a long history of defecation. It should have been settled in this feng shui treasure land since the house was built. He Xiaoman vaguely remembers that the place with his back to the toilet turned out to be a big pigsty, which always kept at least 4 or 5 big pigs. Once suitable pigs cannot be found outside to kill, my grandfather will grab one from his own house and touch He Xiaoman's head with a smile, saying, "We have more pigs at home, so it's good to be a butcher." At that time, the animal husbandry industry was not as developed as it is now, and there were no rules such as designated slaughtering. Butchers were the ones who killed themselves at home. My grandfather chose a place far away from the village to settle down, and his original intention was also here. Don't make money but disgust others. Killing pigs before dawn, disturbing the neighbors and burying them for survival. What you did originally was a business that harmed virtue, and even if you offended the living, you wouldn't be able to live that day. He Xiaoman felt that his grandfather's northeastern dialect with a mouthful of big corn stubble always carried a hint of rustic philosophy belonging to a farmer. Basically, my 2 uncles and grandfather brought the pig to the small South River not far from the door in the morning to kill it. That's close to home, so it doesn't dirty the village environment and doesn't disturb people's sleep. After killing the pigs, just fetch some water from the river and rinse it off. The old house has a large yard so that she can raise many pigs, but the downside is that young He Xiaoman always feels that her path to urination is so long. And now He Xiaoman feels that her path to urination is not only long, but also very scary. I wasn't startled and screamed because a notice board popped up in front of He Xiaoman, and her mission appeared without warning. To detect the soul with trading intentions here. Considering that the homeowner is a second-hand homeowner and has not passed the qualification assessment of the building order, this transaction can be considered as a beginner task. Failure to complete the task will not deduct nodes or popularity, and completing the task will earn double the reward. Novice task. To settle in the earth and return to one's homeland. Task content. Bury Yuan Duong and eliminate his resentment. It turned out that this person was the housekeeper hired from the town as mentioned by Zheng, his wife. No wonder He Xiaoman never saw him. He Xiaoman chose to accept the task. Although this newbie task is a bit disgusting, the target location is disgusting, it should be quite friendly for a second-hand homeowner who has not done any transaction tasks. As mentioned earlier, in the rural areas of northeast China, there is no problem that cannot be solved as long as an old immortal with a Taoist background is invited. Now He Xiaoman finally has his dream come true and can openly rebuild the toilet. I believe no one dares to face a dead person's cesspool alone after dark and still be able to urinate. He Xiaoman felt that even though he was brave from a young age, he was more hesitant than most people to face such a toilet. Not to mention at night, she dares not come here to use the toilet during the day. The image of the head soaking in the cesspool and the round and frightened eyes may remain fresh and unforgettable in He Xiaoman's mind. The matter of burial is easy to handle. To eliminate resentment, you can contact an old immortal with a good reputation and mutter to yourself about the task progress plan. He Xiaoman took out his phone and prepared to call the police. A line of subtitles appeared again on the bulletin board. If you want to get a high reward, please try your best to do it yourself. Relying on others can only lead to a dead end. Seeking someone is never better than seeking oneself. He Xiaoman didn't expect to have the courage to nag about his plan, but unexpectedly obtained some tips about tasks. But I have to report it to the police. This is a human life, and I don't want to file a personal life lawsuit before I understand the mission. Eating the essence and savoring the taste, He Xiaoman continued to mutter to himself. Yuan Duong, who was half exposed in the pit and had been dead for an unknown amount of time, remained expressionless and opened his eyes wide. He Xiaoman always felt as if he was telling him what to say. The notice board didn't respond. He Xiaoman put down the dim sum slightly. It seems that the alarm should be allowed. Uncle Yuan, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were here. If I had known earlier. She had already run away. I will definitely find a way to get you out of here. If you have any unfulfilled wishes, you can tell me. I will not hesitate to help. What He Xiaoman said was sincere, heartfelt, and passionate, but he left himself a way out. Being strong doesn't mean being lacking in heart and mind. As an elderly person who has been working in the company for more than 2 years, when criticized, everyone expresses their determination like this. It sounds earth-shattering, but upon careful consideration, it feels pale and powerless. When it comes to a resentful ghost, she dares not even draw a big cake empty-handed. I heard that ghosts are very real. They will take everything you promise seriously, and if you can't do it, it will make you restless. Task objective. Reduce a little resentment. The homeowner gains 10 basic building materials, only used for building toilets, and 3 popularity points. It's effective. The light curtain in front of her immediately made He Xiaoman so happy that he almost sang and danced in the restroom. However, the thought of the person who contributed materials and popularity still freezing in the restroom made her put away the excitement on her face. However, in this way, the fear of facing a corpse for the first time completely dissipated, and now He Xiaoman has gained a lot of confidence in his newbie mission. He Xiaoman looked into the eyes that were staring straight at him, silently muttering to himself, not afraid, this is just a customer, this is just an order. After completing it, the bonus will drop greatly. He Xiaoman, you can do it. Come on, may the holy light deceive you. He Xiaoman continued to drool and deceive in the bathroom, but the bulletin board remained quiet like a chicken, with no more rewards for her. We need to do something practical. This uncle is not easy to deceive. The police car came quickly and rushed all the way into the yard. He Xiaoman has already said on the phone that the probability of survival for people in the toilet is 0, so there is also a forensic doctor who comes along. Watching the bustling police uncles busy in the cesspool, He Xiaoman felt a bit guilty and felt like he was treating the respected police uncle like a laborer. You guys are busy first, I'll go buy some water for everyone to drink. He Xiaoman felt that he should really express that in early winter, Yuan Duang's body was not completely frozen, so it was quickly dug out, and He Xiaoman's guilt and subsequent attempts to escape were all seen by the police uncle. Do you know this person? Shu Shu asked He Xiaoman seriously. He Xiaoman shook his head. She had never seen Yuan Duong before. It was through a mission that she found out that this person was the Yuan Duong mentioned by Zheng, his wife. He Xiaoman was not lying either. A police car arrived in the village, and soon almost all the people in the village gathered at the entrance of the old house to point and point. However, because someone died, a warning rope was pulled up at the entrance, and those people could only point and point outside the door. It wasn't until He Xiaoman was taken to the only police station in town for questioning that fourth uncle and fourth aunt came together to hear the news. P.S. The contract has been sent out, so babies without investment should hurry up. Let's collect and recommend a wave of support for T and T */ Omega *. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Killer He Xiaoman. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 10. Killer He Xiaoman's son Li Xia, the fourth aunt, had a face full of flattery, which had always been half-hearted and half-hearted. The last time He Xiaoman saw this expression on her was when she was facing her in-laws in the provincial capital at Zhang Shuyuan's engagement banquet. Zhang Guoyin, the fourth uncle, is also considered a well-known person in Weiyou town. After all, he runs 6 businesses and doesn't usually look up or down. Therefore, son Li Xia quickly learned about the situation. It must be Yuan Duong drinking too much yellow soup again. Fourth aunt gritted her teeth and said, if it weren't for being at the police station now, she would probably have already asked the Yuan family's ancestors for 18 generations. Brother Lu, let me tell you, you should all know that Yuan Duong is just an old drunkard. Our family is pitiful for him, so we asked him to come to our place to see the house. There's no need to ask, he must have gotten drunk again, stepped on a bald spot, and fell into a pit. This has nothing to do with our family. Yesterday, I even called him to come over and collect his salary. Oh, I know this happened today. Son Li Xia was somewhat familiar with sitting on a faux leather backrest chair, with one hand occasionally patting the other hand on her lap to match her tone. I've advised him many times to save money and marry a woman to live a good life, but he just doesn't listen. We pity him and even give him an extra 300 yuan per month, but take a look. This person's fate is what fate should be. Don't be afraid, Xiaoman. It's not us who caused him to die there. You can use the toilet as you please. I'll ask your fourth uncle to find another board for you to put on later. He Xiaoman raised his eyebrows and looked at her, probably this is the kind of annoying woman that Jia Baoyu said. Now I feel like I should have a strong kidney. She kept holding it until she went to the toilet at the Weiyou town police station. Son Li Xia spoke in her mouth without any pain or itching, but the schadenfreude on her face was about to overflow. Even Officer Lu, who was taking notes for her next to her, couldn't bear to look down and said, she's the only little girl in such a big courtyard who dares to go back and live in such a big house. Isn't your town house quite spacious? I have one more thing to say. My mother is a big uncle, and you are her aunt. Let's call your child to stay at your house soon. Uncle C kept nodding and saying that he would go and move Xiaoman's belongings to the house while handing him Huazi to the police officer. The atmosphere was very friendly, because they didn't even touch the edge of the suspect. He Xiaoman has already explained the whole process in detail. Considering that it was not allowed after the founding of the People's Republic of China, she omitted some unreasonable things and only said that she had not been lost in the village for many years and did not know how to get to the old house. The reason why I want to run away is because of my guilty conscience, which has caused the police uncle to come all the way to do such dirty work. This explanation is very reasonable. The young police officer who had just left the police academy with a single-minded mind to solve a big case and believed that He Xiaoman had many doubts also had to admit that the reporter was likely the same as the perpetrator and the rules could not be applied to He Xiaoman. At that time, the forensic expert judged that this person had died for at least 48 hours, and He Xiaoman only returned to Weishubeo yesterday. Both her company and Weishubeo have sufficient alibis. The final conclusion from the forensic team has not yet been reached. Estimating the time of the deceased's death further, He Xiaoman was conducting an activity at a sales agency in a small town he was responsible for in D City at that time. Both the travel records and various activity rules were consistent with this time period, so her insignificant suspicion was completely eliminated. However, as usual, Officer Lu still kindly reminded He Xiaoman, Miss, according to regulations, try not to leave Dongning province in the near future in order to cooperate with the investigation of the case. If you need to leave the province for important reasons, remember to contact us in advance. Officer Liu is around 50 years old, with a bronze face and a pair of small eyes that exude the sharp gaze of this profession. With a grayish beard and hair, if it weren't for the police uniform, he looked like an ordinary small-town resident. He reached out and patted He Xiaoman's shoulder, saying, "Don't feel burdened. This is just a necessary procedure. You are both the first witness, the reporter, and the owner of the temporary crime scene. We will complete this case as soon as possible. We apologize for any inconvenience caused." He is not as serious as on TV. Although he speaks in a somewhat official tone, he once spoke fair for He Xiaoman before, making him feel that this uncle is quite approachable. Striving to look like an innocent and implicated little girl, He Xiaoman nodded and was about to speak when his phone rang. "Mom, I'm at the police station and have completed the transcript. It's okay now, don't worry." Just as I pressed the answer button, my mother's anxious inquiries were like the continuous flow of the Yellow River. He Xiaoman really wanted to put a pause button on my mother's mouth. "At least let me answer your question." After this crazy questioning, I forgot everything I asked before. Zhang Kaihua. It's okay with my daughter, I forgot too. At the same time, a beep sound came from the phone, and other calls came in. He Xiaoman made an effort to find a gap in his mother's questioning to insert an urgent notice. "Mom, I'm doing pretty well now. Don't worry, I've bought coal and firewood, and cut the grass in the yard. My company has called me several times." Company is the highest and most prestigious place in the eyes of Zhang Kaihua, a rural woman who has rarely left Zhongtai County in her lifetime. It is like a class teacher when her daughter is studying. He Xiaoman hasn't finished speaking yet, the line has already been collected over there. In such a short while, He Xiaoman has received 4 different phone calls from different people. She called back to the HR department first, and when she reported her name, the other party only left a thunderous sentence. "He Xiaoman, you have been fired. The company will strictly compensate you according to the rules and regulations, and the compensation will be transferred to your account on the payday." Even faster than my mom hanging up the phone, so crisp that I didn't even have time to say goodbye to He Xiaoman. He Xiao was staring blankly. Mind spinning, after so long, those phone calls came one after another, and there would be no other reason besides being involved in the murder case here. "But she's not even a suspect, so you unilaterally convicted me and couldn't wait to get rid of me, who could become a stain on the company. Is it a bit too quick? Life is short and urgent." A few IQ members are still immersed in the shock of being fired, and He Xiaoman's phone rings out loud once again. "Xiaoman, did you really kill someone?" Roommate and colleague Chang Jin's loud voice almost shattered He Xiaoman's eardrum. "Thank you everyone is picking up firewood and the flames are high. We have already received the first reward, cheerleading. We will add more tomorrow." End of this chapter.